And we homeschooled for that year, and it was a healing experience. It was tough. It was hard. It pushed me to a place that, I literally would go to my closet and pray to God pretty much 3 times a day. Hello and welcome to The Middle. I'm Ganel-Lyn Condie, your host. Today I wanted to tackle a subject that right now seems to be stirring up a lot of opinions and emotions, and I just thought I would bring it to the yellow couch, and that is homeschooling versus not homeschooling. So, fun fact, I have 2 kids that I've talked about on this show. One of them I did homeschool for a year. My son Cameron, who's actually guested on Saints Unscripted. So if you ever want to check that episode out, he's very tall and he's always been very tall. But at the age of 13, 7th grade, he needed to have a course correction. And so we made the decision, we offered the opportunity for him to come home and do homeschooling for a year. I have a teaching degree, but I'm going to tell you, homeschooling your teenage son is not for the faint in heart. I actually taught 60 kindergartners, and it was much easier than my one 13-year-old because that age and what's going on, like who wants to hang out with your mom every day? But it was the right decision for our family and for our son at the time. But I remember, this is quite a few years ago, I remember when we made the decision, it created this debate in the neighborhood. Like everyone at church and neighbors were like, what are you doing? Why are you homeschooling him? Like, what's going to happen to his socialization? Now, honestly, in junior high, I don't think any of us want to go back and do junior high again. I think once is enough. Am I right? So I remember thinking at the time, the socialization at junior high is exactly the reason why we're probably homeschooling right now. So that wasn't a loss for us. Now, right now, if you're watching this video in 2020, there's a COVID-19 quarantine, homeschooling, back to school debate going on. And we're at the time of this taping about to go back to school. And I see so many of my friends and families in our neighborhood and in our community trying to make this hard decision. And so recently I've been reflecting on the time where we made that decision. And all of a sudden I was a homeschool mom and I had a teaching degree, but I felt completely stuck in a boat in the rapids without an oar. And that's how it felt emotionally in our house. And I remember feeling like, can someone just validate that we're making a decision that's right for our son? And it doesn't mean that your decision for your family is wrong. And we homeschooled for that year, and it was a healing experience. It was tough. It was hard. It pushed me to a place that, I literally would go to my closet and pray to God pretty much 3 times a day during that time because I was used to having a career and having all these other places to be. And all of a sudden I was home. My son was adjusting and he was home. And it was intense at times. So I felt like I wanted to share this message on The Middle because I know there's a lot of families for different reasons than maybe our family trying to make this decision right now. Should we send our kids back to school? What does that look like for those families that are choosing to homeschool for the very first time? I've talked to a lot of my friends that have already been homeschooling before the coronavirus hit, and they have become the experts that everyone's reaching out to ask advice from. And one of the things that a friend of mine who is a brilliant homeschool mom shared with me just the other day that reminded me of my own experience. It translates for homeschool decisions, not homeschooling, any career decision you're making or anything you're trying to accomplish in the world that is complicated and emotionally triggering at times and frustrating, which homeschool can be that way. She says you have to know your why so that you can go back to that. And I think it's such an important question to ask myself whenever I've made a decision into something that I know is going to take a lot of me and it's going to be triggering at times and I'm not going to have all the answers and I'm not going to always know if I'm making the right choice. I can return to that why. And this friend of mine also suggested that for those parents that are choosing homeschooling because of COVID-19 for the very first time, her suggestion I want to share with you, and that is be really patient with yourself and with your kids. This is new. This is new for a lot of families that never thought, there were so many of my friends that always said, I will never homeschool. I'm so glad you did it for that year, but I could never do it. And I totally understood why they felt that way, because it was hard for me. And I had a teaching degree. It was intense and it was stretching for both my son and I. But now those same friends that said they would never are finding themselves, because of quarantining and the coronavirus, choosing to do that for their families. And it's been an interesting thing to watch their navigating through this. And I think being patient with ourselves, with our kids, with our families is the first step. The next thing I would suggest, if you find yourself in the middle of this and there's a debate going on in your neighborhood or in your communities or even in your families, that it's okay to say, we're going to do it different. And that's okay to acknowledge that your neighbor may be in a totally similar situation, but choosing a different solution for education this year. Why can't we give grace to each other? Why can't we say that for your family, it looks right to homeschool, for our family, it doesn't? And then realize that we have a lot of unknowns. We're all feeling vulnerable. We're all not sure that, we head down this road 3 weeks in, 3 months in, we may find ourselves making different decisions, either because our choice or because something changes in our communities, in our state, with the virus specifically, or with your school. So I guess I would just invite us all to take a deep breath. Give permission that your neighbor may be doing it very differently than you. You may be trying to start a situation with homeschooling that you've never considered doing before. There are a ton of resources out there. I know there are a lot of Facebook groups for homeschool moms and dads. I know there are blogs and Instagram accounts, YouTube channels. There's a lot of resources because of social media that we can get that support virtually that maybe we didn't have when I was going through it. I know that also it's important to realize that within a family, one decision we make for one of our kids may not be the right thing for our other child. And if you have multiple kids with multiple needs and situations, that's intense for a family to navigate. So I would say also within this whole discussion about homeschooling, not homeschooling, there's a reason why we call it school choice. It's a choice. And isn't it great that we have choices? And I guess I want to just celebrate for all the families that homeschooled for years and maybe felt criticized for that. They've become great advocates and resources for those families that are now doing it, but never wanted to do it, never thought they would do it, and they need support. They need to call a friend and say, hey, I don't know what to do on days like this. I don't know how to motivate my 5th grader. I don't know how to teach science because that's not my thing. There's so many resources and experts out there that have already been doing this, and they can be a support if you're doing it for the first time. For those of you that are like, listen, I love my kids, but there is no way I can homeschool. I don't have the patience. It doesn't work with our finances. I've got to work. It's not going to work for me. And you're feeling criticized because you're choosing your kids to go back to school. I want to validate you. That's what our family's doing. I have a daughter that's going to be a junior in high school, and she's going back to school. And I've heard comments already about that. Like, oh, well, good luck with that. She's only going to be back at school for a few weeks and then they're going to shut the school down, which may be true. But for our situation, for her stage of life, this is the right choice for our family and for our child. And I think it's just important that we are a little more compassionate, a little more sensitive to one another, instead of assuming that you have all the right answers, so your neighbor's doing it wrong, or vice versa, that you are really questioning, you're doubting, you're not sure if you can do this. It's okay. You don't have to start it and know all the answers right away. That's what we talk about here at the Middle. That's what this yellow couch is about. It's about being okay with not having all the answers yet. And so my invitation to all of us as we get ready to go back to school, that we all just take a deep breath. We all acknowledge that there's a lot of unknowns, that we're not sure how things are going to play out. I think schools and teachers right now are stressed out of their minds. All the teachers that I've talked with, I've had a lot of school districts reach out to me personally to try to provide some support on a mental health level. Our teachers are navigating so many unknowns. Our administrators are trying to figure things out and how it's going to look. And our families and our extended families and neighborhoods are also trying to figure things out. This is uncharted territory. And I think it would do all of us a lot of good to be compassionate and realize that school choice is just that. Isn't it great that we live in a country where we have choice, where we have the freedom and opportunity in America to have that choice? I know we have viewers that are not in the United States, and so I know that every country has different ways in which they're handling the virus, how they're handling education. But I know that for most of us in the world, there's opportunities to choose. And I think when we do that, it makes us doubt sometimes that if our choice looks different than the person next to us, then somehow we're wrong or they're wrong. And I would just say there's no wrong. There's choice. And I would also say if you start out homeschooling and it's not working, you have the choice maybe to change out of that and go in a different direction. I know there's tutors out there and there's online resources that can help. There's also families that are 100% going forward with going back to school right now, and they may make a decision midway and choose back out and start homeschooling. And if you found this video and you're stressed out, I just want to validate. I spent a lot of time that year in my closet crying to God, and that was my manna. I would go to him a couple of times a day saying, listen, I feel like you directed me to do this, but I don't know how it looks. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to be patient. My son's irritated with me. I'm irritated with him. And we're stuck in the house together. And God helped me through it. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't perfect. There were some great things about it. I look back on that time. We would get our frescoes out for lunch. And we would watch Psych. That's what we did every day for lunch. And there were many days that was the only good part of the day. We were arguing. We were frustrated. He was frustrated. I was sometimes not the kind of homeschool mom I wanted to be. But we made it through and we learned a lot about each other. And I hope that no matter what this school year looks like for your family, that you will give yourself some grace. Go to God. He's aware of what you're navigating. He will talk with you and comfort you. He may not remove the storm, but he can calm us in the middle of the storm. And I know that is for sure for me in so many situations I'm navigating right now. So thank you for joining us here at The Middle. I hope this helps one family, one homeschool situation, one back to school, a teacher, an administrator. Please share this video with someone that needs to have permission to do it the way you feel directed to do it, even if your neighbor is doing it different. Thank you again for joining us here on The Middle, and we'll see you again soon.